All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're taking a look at the dramatic leadership change inside Turning Point USA, which, as you know, is one of the most influential conservative youth groups in America. And right at the heart of it all is one woman, who's taken the reins in a moment of absolute crisis. So, in the wake of an unthinkable tragedy, these were the very first words the public heard from Erika Kirk. She said this just 2 days after her husband Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And this one speech, well, it set the stage for a massive shift, not just inside an organization, but really across a whole movement. You have to imagine, with the sudden death of its founder and leader, the 1,500 employees at Turning Point USA, or TPUSA, were just thrown into chaos. Suddenly, the future of this conservative powerhouse was totally up in the air. But then, less than a week after the assassination, Erika Kirk makes this incredibly decisive move. She gets the entire organization together on a Zoom call, and the point wasn't just to grieve, it was to bring stability. Her message was crystal clear. We're not collapsing, and we are not changing the mission. It was a really powerful first step in asserting control. And it didn't take long for that informal promise on Zoom to become official. The organization announced that Erika Kirk would be its next CEO and chair of the board. And look, this wasn't some kind of power struggle. According to TPUSA, this was exactly what her late husband had wanted. Now, her pledges here show this fascinating double-sided goal. On one hand, she's promising to protect her husband's legacy, which is all about continuity. But on the other hand, she's promising explosive growth to make the movement bigger than ever before. So it's a vow of both preservation and massive expansion. So who is this woman now running the show? I think to really get her vision for the future of the movement, you have to look back at her pretty unconventional past. Her journey has been, well, pretty remarkable. I mean, she's a former Miss Arizona, an NCAA basketball player, and she goes from meeting a major political figure to marrying him, and now to leading his entire organization herself. Her rise has been incredibly fast, and it's all completely intertwined with Charlie Kirk. And their story really started with what was supposed to be a job offer. Charlie Kirk had seen her on Instagram and reached out. But when they met for the first time in Manhattan, the conversation turned from professional to personal, just like that. That moment really kicked off a partnership that would, in the end, put her at the head of a national movement. Now, as a public figure, Erika Kirk has really promoted a very specific vision for women, one that's centered around faith, marriage, and motherhood. And this is where a really interesting contrast starts to pop up, a contrast between the message she advocates for and the life she's now leading. She's talked very openly about embracing this idea of submission in a biblical marriage. She's urged young women to be a helpmate to their husbands, to prioritize their home life over a career. And for her followers, that message has really hit home. But this contrast has led some people to point out what they see as a contradiction. You know, on one side, she calls boss babe culture toxic and says she could care less about the career. But on the other side, she's also the founder of her own clothing company. She hosts a podcast, and now she's the CEO of a huge national organization. So the big question is, how has this new leader, with her very unique story and message, been received? While the early signs are pointing to a pretty electrifying effect on the movement space. For a lot of the young followers, like 19-year-old Faith Merrill, Erika isn't just another CEO, she's a mother figure. This totally reframes the leadership of Turning Point. It goes from being a male-led organization to one guided by a matriarch, and that's a shift that has a really deep cultural impact for its members. And if you go back to that first fiery speech, she wasn't just mourning, she was mobilizing. She took all of that raw emotion and turned it into a direct call to action. She basically said, if your campus doesn't have a TPUSA chapter, you have zero excuse not to start one right now. And the response was just explosive. The organization said it got 54,000 inquiries to start new chapters. Now, to put that into perspective, before this, TPUSA had a presence on about 3,500 campuses in total. This was a tidal wave of new interest, and it was all sparked by that one speech. So all of this leaves us with one final thought. We're watching a movement that's really at a crossroads. It has a new leader who kind of embodies both traditional values and very modern ambition. The question now is, will Erika Kirk just be a guardian of a legacy, or is she about to become the architect of something entirely new?